Welcome to the BrainCode training module for SPReD naming conventions. This module is intended for users who will be uploading neuroimaging and related data into an existing project on SPReD. Before proceeding, ensure you have completed the following training modules first. BrainCode Portal Overview Training Module, BrainCode Subject ID Naming Convention Training Module, and the BrainCode SPReD Introduction Training Module. If you have completed these modules, please continue on watching. Naming conventions for project IDs. Here are an example of two project IDs on SPReD. OBI assigns codes for IDP, study, and site. The first component is a 3-letter IDP code, in our case CBN for Cambine. The second component is a 2-digit study number, and in some project IDs, a study number can be followed by a 3-letter site code. Site codes are used in project IDs when data access has to be controlled on a site-by-site basis for legal or other reason. Naming conventions for IDP studies. To refresh from the Naming Conventions training module, each subject ID in BrainCode is a unique ID which is comprised of 4 elements. First, the program ID, which is a 3-letter abbreviation corresponding to the IDP. For example, CPNet is CPN. Remember, if your IDP is not listed here, you can contact the BrainCode team for the abbreviation. Next, the study ID is a unique identifier for a specific IDP study, in this case 01. The study ID is followed by an underscore. The unique identifier for the IDP recruiting site is represented by a 3-character site code. For this example, we use Baycrest, and the site code will be BYC. If you don't know your site code, you can contact your study manager or a BrainCode team member. The site ID will then be followed by an underscore. The subject number is a 4-digit numeric code sequentially assigned by site or provided via pre-populated list at the site. In this case here, we've used 0005. Naming conventions for SPReD session IDs for IDP studies. The components include a subject ID followed by an underscore, a 2-digit numeric visit ID followed by an underscore, SE followed by a 2-digit session number, example SE01 followed by an underscore, and a modality code. Part codes may also be used if the session was interrupted and resumed, in which case the parts are then assigned letters consecutively from A and will follow the session ID. SPReD scan types for IDP studies. DICOM upload scans are automatically assigned a type from the header. Non-DICOM uploads have the user supply a type for each scan when it is created. These can be chosen from a list or free-form text. The BrainCode convention is that all non-DICOM scans begin with the same modality code that appears in the session name, but has an optional suffix that begins with an underscore and doesn't contain spaces. Otherwise, the suffix is unrestricted. For example, EEG or EEG underscore subcut. If a suffix is used, it should be standardized and documented within the IDP. Naming conventions for SPReD scan folder names within IDP studies. The BrainCode convention for non-DICOM scans is folder name beginning with the same modality code that appears in the session name. It may have an optional suffix beginning with an underscore and not containing spaces. Naming conventions for SPReD scan folder names. File and folder names for non-DICOM scan data and resources, once uploaded, are preserved in SPReD. BrainCode conventions for file names or top-level folders is that the name begin with session name and an optional suffix. This suffix can start with an underscore or a period. Otherwise, the suffix is unrestricted. For example, CBN01 underscore TWH underscore 0009 underscore SE01 underscore MEEG dot DS. SPReD scan folder names for IDP studies. All files in SPReD should be individually named and archived using the naming conventions to facilitate searching and future data sharing. The only exception is for a series of slices or time courses, which may keep their original names as long as the folder containing them is named according to SPReD conventions. Naming conventions for non-human phantom studies. In BrainCode, phantom scans and other quality control data associated with specific scanners or recording devices should be uploaded into the special QC projects reserved for this purpose. This is done because these devices may be shared among multiple ID programs. Naming conventions for non-human phantom studies, SPReD project ID for non-human phantom. Here's an example of a project ID for the non-human QC project. The components are the site code represented here by TWH, a device code, and the characters QC, which indicate the project is associated with quality control. SPReD subject ID for non-human phantom. In a QC project, the SPReD subject ID is actually a non-human phantom ID of the following form: PHA_LEG0001. The components include PHA followed by an underscore, a 3-character phantom type code, and a 4-digit numeric phantom ID code. Listed below are the non-human phantom type codes. SPReD session IDs for non-human phantom studies. In a QC project, session IDs have the following format, where the first 5 characters of the project ID, site, and device codes are followed by an underscore. PHA followed by another underscore and a phantom type code, as well as a phantom ID number followed by an underscore. In addition, a 4-digit visit ID. Scan folders and file names should begin with the session name, as for non-phantom IDP studies. Scan folder names may have an optional suffix that begins with an underscore and does not contain spaces but is otherwise unrestricted. File names may have an optional suffix that begins with an underscore or a period and does not contain spaces but is otherwise unrestricted. Naming conventions for rescans or reacquisitions. Once a session has been complete, if a rescan or reacquisition is required, the session number is used to record it. For instance, assume the session ID of a participant who comes in for the first time is as follows. Should the session need to be rerun later on the same day or the same visit, then a letter B would be added to the new session code. If rescans or reacquisitions need to occur after a session has already been completed and the participant needs to be brought back on a different day to rerun part or all of that session, then the session number would increment by 1 to become SEO2, and a note would be written into SPReD that SEO2_MR was done in order to replace SEO1_MR. Let's recap today's training module. To recap SPReD naming conventions for project IDs, remember that they always begin with the program and study code assigned by OBI. That will be followed by optional suffixes separated by underscores, for instance the 3-character site code. Here are some examples below. Subject IDs. Within an OBI research IDP, each subject must have a unique subject ID assigned by project coordinators. Program, study, and site IDs are assigned by OBI. Here's an example of a subject ID, CBN01_BYC_0999, where CBN01 represents the IDP and the study code, BYC represents the site code, and 0999 represents the subject ID. To recap, session IDs usually consist of the subject ID followed by an underscore and a visit ID. An underscore and SE with the session number and optional part code, followed by another underscore and then the modality code. Here are a few examples. Do you have any questions about today's training module? If so, contact a SPReD administrator by emailing spred@brainco.ca. For more general inquiries, email help@brainco.ca. Next steps. Take the quiz to complete the training module for SPReD naming conventions, then proceed to the SPReD file upload training tutorial. Upon successful completion of these modules, you will be given credentials for a SPReD production account. Thank you for watching today's training video.